Mommy, I'm hungry. I want a sausage roll. I know you have some. You are probably hiding them so that you can eat them yourselves.
r/EntitledParents. What is up, guys? Mr. Reddit here, back with another episode of Entitled Parents Stories. r/EntitledParents is one of my favorite subreddits, and I really enjoyed making this. Now kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. Today, we've got 4 awesome Entitled Parents stories that we're looking at. Our first story will be, "Ma'am, that's not on the menu."
I don't care. Give it to entitled kid.
Our second story will be, "Karen lies to the manager, gets caught, bombs the store with pepper spray." Our third story, entitled "Mom wants to steal my birthday cake. My mother terrifies her kid and her into backing off." And our fourth story, "Sometimes calm understanding and patience is the best way to destroy people." Before we begin, welcome to our newest subscribers, Candy, Hijacker, and Tommy. Now let's begin. "Ma'am, that's not on the menu."
I don't care. Give it to entitled kid.
Alright, this might be a bit long, but I found it really funny, so bear with me. I'm on mobile, blah blah blah, I'm an elephant. A bit of backstory. Me, my wife, my friend, and my friend's wife. Me and my friend have been friends since 2nd grade, kind of collectively own a small coffee shop in a small town in BC, Canada. All of the food and coffee we make is made in the kitchen by hand, and there are only ever the 4 of us. We all have our little duties, so the place runs fine, if a bit slow. My wife and I make all of the food, while my friend makes the coffee and roasts the beans, and my friend's wife, who is the only non-introvert around us, works as a cashier. It's a roaring good time, and I can't really think of a job I would rather have. Anyway, we are a fairly popular place, and due to our ways of making food, we usually sell out by 11 in the morning or so. We will still have the occasional sandwich or sausage roll left, but it's mostly gone. On to the main story. One Monday afternoon, we were just kind of chilling. My friend's wife was sick, so I was manning the front. I have no people skills, but I was doing okay. We were just making the food and coffee, telling jokes, and just generally having a good time. Of course, that was quickly stopped by a dark presence entering the shop. The cast. Karen is the entitled mother. SEB is the stupid entitled brat. Friend is the cool coffee dude. Wife, generally just an amazing human. And the BOD, random old black dude. Being black had relevance. And me, ancient god of an old city. Karen walks in with entitled brat, and the following conversation ensues.
Hi, can I have 2 sausage rolls, a Greek salad, and an extra large espresso?
This is a good time to mention that all of the food we have is displayed in a glass case, and there were clearly no sausage rolls or Greek salads. "Sorry, ma'am, we only have the espresso left. Would you still like one of those? Or a sandwich? We still have a few of those left."
But the menu outside says that the sausage roll is your daily special.
"Yes, so they sold out quickly. If you wait 5 to 10 minutes, we can make you a fresh one."
Mommy, I want one now. Give entitled brat one. The board says you have them.
"Ma'am, I've told you. We are sold out of sausage rolls and Greek salads. Do you want a sandwich?"
Mommy, I'm hungry. I want a sausage roll. I know you have some. You are probably hiding them so that you can eat them yourselves. You also probably spit on all your food. Now give entitled brat one. Now!
Me, totally done with her. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Also, why do you want one if we spit in them?" Karen, doing the standard Karen screech.
Ah! I'm not leaving until my angel gets his food. He has had great grades and deserves to be happy. If you keep hoarding it, I will report you to the police for discrimination and cooking without a license.
Me and my friend, both in total shock. What? Now, we have our cooking license thing hanging on the wall right above the counter, so I have no idea what she was talking about. Karen, looking smug.
That's right. Give me a sausage roll, now!
"Ma'am, our license is right here." Points to the license hanging right above me.
That looks fake. You probably forged it.
Now, this is when the cool old dude comes up to her. "Ma'am, I don't know if you have dysfunctional eyes or if you're just stupid, but they have a real license right there." Points to it with his cane. Karen, turning around to look at him.
This isn't your problem, old fool.
And then this horrible lady just slaps him. This crazy lady has the audacity to slap him. Me and my friend just stood there in shock while Karen was glaring daggers at us.
I'm really, really, really hungry, Mommy. I need food now.
Karen tried to reach over the counter to grab a sandwich when a hand stopped her. My wife walked out of the kitchen. Now, my wife is African American, so she was greatly offended by what this woman had called the old man. My wife told her, "Get out, now!"
I don't think so. Who do you think you are?
My wife told her, "The person that will report you to the police for assault, attempted theft, and about 5 other charges. Now get out of the store." Now, normally my wife is easygoing and really nice. This was probably the most serious I've ever seen her, and I was kind of scared. Me and my friend were just kind of watching this, wishing we had popcorn. Karen turned slightly pale and simply said,
Come on, entitled brat. Let's go eat somewhere good.
Just as they were leaving, the old man, who had just gotten back up after sitting down due to the slap, called after them, "Hey, you wanted a sausage roll?" and threw his half-eaten one right at Karen's head. Let me tell you, Karen's screech was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. Well, that's my story. Sorry there was no police called or anything, but I still found it funny. Side note, I never worked the counter again. Up next, we've got Karen lies to the manager, gets caught, bombs the store with pepper spray. This took place last week at work. Some backstory. I am a cashier at Harris Teeter and very rarely have a negative interaction with someone because it was such a tight-knit neighborhood atmosphere. Everyone knew and loved us cashiers. This was the one exception. It was also the most insane public freakout I have ever experienced. It was mid-morning and I had been talking to one of my customers that always comes to my register. After giving her the receipt, smiling, I turned to today's Karen, who was already glaring at me with the classic resting mean woman face. Her responses to my greetings immediately gave me a sense that she was not in the best mood. "Did you find everything okay today, ma'am?"
No. But then again, I never do at this place.
"Well, you can always go to customer service, and they can locate an item for you if we have it in stock."
No. I don't want to waste my time.
Just being really condescending, really mean. She asks for paper bags, which annoys me because that takes twice as long and it's already busy. When I finally finish bagging, she hands me a bunch of coupons and I start scanning them. The week before, there was a store event that doubled all coupons and the computer would do it automatically. She thought it was still going on, and so when the computer didn't double them, I guess she thought I was trying to short her. She accuses me of this, and I inform her that the special event ended 2 days ago, and she says, "Well, can't you just do it for me?"
Stop being so cheap. You ended it too early.
Now, Harris Teeter is pretty chill about these things, and if she was polite and I asked the manager, she probably would have finessed, but she wasn't. So when she complained and asked for my manager, and he came over and said exactly what I said, I was very satisfied. She wasn't. After I rung her up, I still kind of felt bad, because she wasn't expecting to spend so much money. During the event, people would bring $80 orders to like under $10 with the right coupons, if that shows how good the deal was. I suggested that I could give her the senior discount, which is 5%, and can only be used on Thursday for people over 65. This would make sure she left at least a little content. Also, my manager would have probably thought it was a good compromise to save a customer. Karen did not appreciate my act of kindness, to say the least. She immediately got triggered and assumed I thought she was over 65.
No. I don't want your senior discount.
She said this with enough volume that the closest other cashiers turned around and looked. This was the exact opposite reaction I was expecting, and I was completely thrown off. I tried to finish the transaction to get her out of the store ASAP, but she wasn't near finished. She demanded the manager come back to the register. When he got there, she accused me of calling her old and tried to say I was being extremely disrespectful. My manager, knowing how respectful I usually am to the customers, immediately smelled her BS and also tried to get her away from the register and over to the customer service desk so they could deal with her easily away from the line of customers. She was not having it. She kept saying I was the most disrespectful cashier she had ever witnessed. At this point, everyone within 20 yards was gawking at us in horror. She then said she was not leaving this spot until she got all of her coupons doubled and I was fired. My manager came in clutch and said, "Hold on, ma'am, I will take care of it for you," but went and got security. This is when it really hits the fan. Upon seeing the huge security guard following the manager over to her, she realizes she's messed up and goes out with a bang. She quickly rummages through her purse, and I am confused for a second when she pulls out a mini pepper spray bottle. I start to duck, but she lets it fly right at me as she curses some more. I have never seen pepper spray used before, so when it didn't directly hit my skin, I thought I was fine. I was wrong. As the smoke billows around the register, the other shoppers rush backwards to get away from the particles in the air. But in seconds, everyone that was touched by the smoke started hacking and running away to the bathroom. I can barely breathe through what felt like bee stings lining the inside of my throat, and I stumble out from my cover, coughing and writhing from the way that the smoke was melting my face and arms. A guy from the line next to me somehow bears the pain and jumps in and bear hugs her until a security guard catches up and slams her against the ground. The last thing I hear when I'm covering my scorched face and running to the employee bathroom is Karen screaming at the security guard to get off of her. The air all around where she sprayed felt like it caught on fire, and my sensitive skin was completely inflamed, even after 15 minutes of splashing cold water on it. When I finally come back out, the shopping center police are talking to the manager, and I can see Karen being guided into a cop car through the front store windows looking into the parking lot. It is still under pandemonium because several shoppers got injured by the spray as well. My manager praises and apologizes to me for what happened and tells me to go home early. Despite the massive L, I got to take some stuff from Karen's cart since she already paid for it all. Those were the greatest tasting double stuffed Oreos of my life. Also, I ganked some smoothies, which felt really good on my sore throat. I didn't go to the doctor because my house is close, and when I called my mom, she said we had some cream that helped. He calls me later that day and clarifies that there's no need for me to be involved legally since there were cameras and tons of other witnesses. They just asked me to give them a more accurate account for the dialogue between Karen and I. Fast forward a week. I got off work today, and before I left, my manager told me she got charged with assault and battery and was put in jail to wait for her trial. I didn't have to press charges because the store was vouching for me. I'm also starting next month with a $2.50 raise, which makes my hourly $12 an hour instead of $9.50, which is nice. They told me a bunch of other benefits I would have, but it's mostly stuff I don't have to worry about right now. I'm not sure if it is because I can sue the store or they just feel bad for me. For the most part, my face is healed, but there are still some splotches on my neck. Moral of the story, pepper spray is like a poisonous grenade, and never bring up the senior discount around someone who is mentally insane. Next up, we've got Entitled Mom Wants to Steal My Birthday Cake. My mother terrifies her kid and her into backing off. So I've recently encountered an entitled mother at Waitrose in the UK. This story features me only as a partial spectator and my mom as the victim of the entitled mom, or entitled mom as the victim of my mother in all honesty. Happened over a week ago, but only now getting the time to write it. For some context, all of you here in the UK know how this is a fairly pricey grocery store aimed at the upper middle class. Me and my parents rarely go in it, unless we have a good coupon or want cakes, as their bakery is utterly delicious and not as pricey as everything else. This happened about a week ago, and recently I had my 21st birthday, and my parents have decided to order me a whole rainbow cake as my birthday cake as a treat, which only cost around 20 pounds, which is $26 US. This cake is always at high demand as it's one of their best sellers, meaning that the only way you are likely to get one full is if you order it online and come really early to the store. You simply place an order and a cake is reserved for you at a date, where you then pick it up and pay at the store. Simple enough, right? I know it comes off as a little childish, but the cake is delicious and I love colors, so heck with it. So it was the day before my birthday, and my parents had driven to town and I came along for the free ride, and at the end of the day, about 5 p.m., we headed towards the shop to pick up the cake. By the time we had gotten into the shop and into the little bakery section, we did not see many people around waiting to be served, but we did see a lot of people who had stopped dead in their tracks to watch a lady. I want to say she had the "I want to speak to your manager" hair, but she didn't really. She looked like the most common middle-aged blonde with no identifiable taste in clothes, tacky and straight up ugly. The most memorable thing was most likely her massive nails and the freaking infinite amount of rings on her fingers. Tacky, fake rings to match her ugly accent that she waved as she yelled at the employee behind the counter. With her, she had a girl who didn't look over 10 or 12. I can't really tell kids' ages anymore in modern times. I heard an audible sigh from my own mother, who then rolled her eyes. It was a busy day. As we got closer, this is the conversation I could make out. Entitled Mom.
What do you mean you don't have rainbow cakes?
She yelled. I'm sorry, ma'am. We're all out for today. We sold our last daily patch at 2 p.m.
Well, go check again, you idiot. I need it for my daughter's birthday. It's a special occasion.
She elongated the word as if she was talking to someone who was challenged. I'm sorry, ma'am. There is nothing I can do for you. Maybe you could—
Well, then go make one. And make some good use of yourself, you lazy cow.
She barked at her. Ma'am, I cannot do that. And even if I wanted to, I couldn't do it. We don't have the time or the ingredients to make it on demand right now. I did not want to drop any judgment onto her child until I hear it speak. She began whining and crying, yelling loudly and whining about the situation. This kid was absolutely chaotic.
Mommy, I want my cake. I want it.
She screeched like a banshee. Honestly, now that I think about it, I didn't even know humans could make this high-pitched, shrill sound that made my back shiver.
This is why this country has gone down the drain. Because immigrants like you take up jobs and then start being lazy. Do your job and make yourself useful.
She berated her. What she said was even meaner than this. She kept going on, and I didn't understand why, since the woman was pale, pasty white and even spoke perfect English. Honestly, better than my own. The child then had started to whine. She was not old enough to be able to look over the counter and bang on it, so she began to make noises on the lower half of the counter, continuously making a small banging noise. My mother had visibly had enough of this and made her way forward and pushed past the entitled mom. She slightly shoved her, as my stepfather then placed himself between the two of them to make some boundary.
What? Excuse me?
She tried to protest, but my mother had ignored her like a bad fart in a big room, knowing that eventually it will pass. Hello, said my mom with a half smile, as she knew the woman did nothing wrong herself. My parents were also worried that our reserved cake had been sold and that they were also in trouble. I overheard that you sold all the cakes, but we had one reserved and I am wondering if it is still here, she asked. The employee smiled. Oh, are you Mrs.? Yes, I am. It's for my daughter. The woman goes towards the back and opens one of the cabinets, and there was a cake there that was reserved by us. The entitled mom almost exploded.
Excuse me? You said that there were no more cakes available, you liar!
Ma'am, no more available to sell cakes. This one was reserved to be picked up at 5 p.m. and 2 days ahead. Entitled mom turns to my mother, who is facing the employee.
Excuse me? I was here first, and my daughter needs her birthday cake. She has been good, and I want to treat my little princess, she said. She turns at me and looks appalled, eyeing me up and down and waving her branches and tacky jewelry. You are too old for a cake. It's disguising. This is for a child and her special day. She kept highlighting that she was here first. Are you deaf and stupid? I asked her quite bluntly. We ordered it. At that moment, my mother's head turned in an iron fashion. You know that moment when someone's body is deathly still and unflinching, and only their neck moves to look into a direction, like what owls do? Well, that is what my mother's iron turn and stare had looked like. In the meanwhile, the child was forming a tantrum, taking things and throwing them around from the counters across the bakery, picking things out of her mother's cart and then chucking them onto the floor. Calmly, my mother asked entitled mom, ignoring the child, Did you pre-order it? No, but... Did you buy it? And I'm stealing it from your hands? You are, but not... I'll take that as an uneducated no, she says as entitled mom's mouth felt somewhat crooked by the looks of it. You need to also teach your child some manners and how to behave in a public space. Are you telling me how to parent my child? My mom turned to the child and bent down a little when she stopped throwing things and went back demanding,
With a booming and commanding voice, my mother yelled at her in a solid and powerful manner. "Shut up, brat!" The child shut down immediately. You should have seen her face. No panic or tears, not even a glint of sadness or fear, only a deafening silence. Like a deer in headlights, she looked at my mom in an utter and soulless manner. Her face paled as my mother's voice resonated into her. Entitled Mom was also shocked and silent. Calmly, my mother turned back to the employee and asked, "Will that be 20 pounds?" with a smile. And the employee simply shook her head and thanked my mother for the purchase and for ordering it online, as it made it easier. The woman sets the cake onto the counter, and Entitled Mom starts reaching for it. The Entitled Mom reaches out and tries to grab it. Now that I think about it, mumbling something along the lines of, "This is insane," in a defensive manner. My stepfather's shoulder rose up to get in her way. I stepped harshly forward, as in the meantime I shuffled closer to her and my parents. You could now hear the muffled sniff of the girl, but she was still and silent. "You fat cow!" she yelled and stumbled back as I forcefully stomped on her foot with all the force I could manage. "You stepped on me!" she yelled at me, and I just smiled. "Oof, I sure did. Shouldn't have gotten in my way," I said in a condescending way, I suppose. I smiled at her in an amused manner, and my mother simply picked up the cake and did not even look at the woman. She turned to start walking away, and Entitled Mom tried to follow, but her limp made it hard and she simply gave up. I could still hear the complaining about this behind us, but her child? No, not another word. The cake was delicious, and this made it even sweeter. And for our final story today, sometimes calm understanding and patience is the best way to destroy people. Okay, so a wee bit of backstory. Way back in the early 2000s, we moved a full state over. This was big for me, because we moved a lot, but it was always just 1 or 2 cities over. I had never left my home state before, but this new home was great, and my family has been there ever since. Now I was 14 at the time, and all the kids around were 10 or so there was no one my age to hang out with. So in the end, I just stayed with these kids, and there was a surprising amount of culture shock. I was raised way more conservatively and was a lot more durable, yet reserved. As the years passed, I ended up being the neighborhood babysitter. It was odd for me, as I was an enormous young man. I'm currently 6'7", and I was very awkward growing up, but I don't have many non-fond memories of my childhood and younger friends. It wasn't all fun, but it was decent. But I left for the Navy, and I had this interesting encounter when I came back after a year or so on what ended up being literally my only military leave. Most of my friends were all adults now, or almost that, but I still got asked to babysit at least their younger siblings and generally keep them out of trouble. I was basically just there to make sure the little ones didn't run out in front of cars or play with matches. My best friend, whom I will just call Mark for now, was there with me. He was a tall, skinny black guy who I absolutely loved to match wits with, still do to this day. One of the only people who can challenge me intellectually, but he has a bit of a rough background with his family. This is important later. So that fateful day, I was up and about, mostly catching up with my friends and talking to them about basic and my first year or so at my command, which was in Japan, so it was a pretty popular topic. I only vaguely had to intervene with the younger kids and get them to calm down or stop something. Now, enter the entitled kid and entitled mom. I had been gone for about 2 years, and almost the same week I had left, this new family had moved in. So they got to know everybody but me. But I had been there for years before her, and everyone else in the neighborhood trusted me explicitly as they knew me very well. As I talked with my friends, I noticed some new faces, but mostly entitled kid. I inquired Mark, but he just said it was some kid from a family that moved in just after I left. Everything seemed fine until I heard a hefty clunk and clatter. I turned to see a softball-sized rock clattering up the cul-de-sac. I look in the opposite direction where the rock is rolling, and I see entitled kid pick up another and hurl it at the head of Mark's younger brother, then reach for another. Apparently, it was entitled kid's idea of what playing was. I very quickly rushed over, snatching the rock from him, and very sternly told him he could hurt or even kill somebody if he tried to play like that. I didn't know him or his family, so I didn't bother doing or saying anything else until I turned around and started back to Mark. I saw him waving, and a rock bounced off of my head. Granted, I'm 6'7" and 300 pounds, so it's not like it was going to kill me. But still, I turned around and glared at the little twat, jabbing my finger near violently to the end of the street, very clearly and aggressively saying, "Go home now." He took off like the devil was chasing him, and I figured it was over. But you know how this works. 2 minutes later, this shaved, gorilla-looking, middle-aged woman came strutting up the street with entitled kid in tow. She came marching right up to me, practically frothing at the mouth. Though for the past 2 years, I have had everything from first-class petty officers to Master Chiefs screaming in my face. So while she looked to have some weight on her and expected the world to cower when she went all mama bear, I remained upright and towered over her when she came to confront me. My refusal to step back appeared to mildly prompt her to not get all too close. Still, the "re" of it all was strong. Entitled Mom practically perforated my eardrums with her
"What did you do to my child?"
I calmly responded, "Ma'am, he was throwing rocks at the other kids. I told him to stop, and he threw rocks at me, so I told him to go home." About this time, I noticed Mark shaking his head. Clearly, this was a woman who had a reputation. Regardless, Mark came to my side trying to confirm my story, but the shrieking continued.
"No, you abused my child. He's got red marks on his arm."
I looked over at the kid, who seemed to not only be perfectly fine, but straight up gleeful at his mother, who was flailing and frothing at me. I sighed and just again calmly spoke. "Ma'am, I didn't touch him. You can ask literally everyone present." And again.
"No, I know these kids. They are all liars and thieves, especially him."
She threw an accusing finger at Mark, and honestly, despite having seen a bit of the world, it took me a bit back when I heard her spew.
"You can't trust their kind."
I didn't know exactly what she was meaning, as it just came out sounding very bad. I don't know if she was just spouting off some crazy stuff or whatever, but she kept on frothing. She went on about how her little angel would never hurt anyone or anything and so on, talking about the imaginary red marks on his arm. But then it came out.
"And you? How old are you? What is someone your age doing with children, you creep? I'm calling the police."
I sighed loudly and just told her, "Go ahead. You'll find this isn't going to go your way." She made a few gorilla noises, which I think were supposed to be words, before she turned from my unflinching face and to Mark and started tearing into him and his family, trying to tell him that he had some sort of darkness in him and how it's in his whole family. Some pseudo-religious evil spirit garbage before I had finally had enough. I turned about, gesturing for all the kids to go into one of the houses. "Hey, let's just leave. She's not thinking straight. Let's just let whoever comes to figure this out deal with it." She growled and made more gorilla noises before turning around. Mark said something along the lines of, "We shouldn't have to leave because of her." She doesn't know me. If your brother came to you and said some stranger was hitting him or whatever, your rage would overwhelm your trust of a complete stranger too. I left out any mentions of gorilla noises and frothing at the mouth, as Mark was clearly above that. However, entitled Mom whipped about and screamed at me.
"If you're going to say something about me, say it to my face."
To which I turned around and repeated the exact same thing to her, clarifying that despite the fact that she was acting incredibly aggressive and was in the wrong, it was at least understandable. She grunted more and stormed off with entitled kid in tow. It wasn't until a few days later, when the story had circulated around the neighborhood from both sides. Entitled Mom seemed to change her mind on calling the police. Instead, she went around to the other houses and tried to tell them stories about me, saying I was a creepy child abuser. However, as I stated, everyone knew me. Not only that, but in small towns, when someone goes off to join the military, well, to put it simply, not only did all those other adults know me pretty well, but my joining the military kind of put me into a state of pseudo-sainthood. Then all the kids told their side of the story, and what ended up happening is a severe alienation of the entitled mom. The small town believed me and the kids, and this shaved gorilla was not only calling into question my integrity, but implying I was a horrible person. It was almost instant. The third day, entitled Mom came to me and made a very, very thorough apology. I recommended her to apologize to Mark and his family too, to which I think she did. But it appeared as though a simple "I'm sorry" wasn't enough. Just a month or so after, I went back to my ship. I got an email letting me know that entitled mom and her family moved out. Apparently, the neighborhood was a bit extremely zealous in my defense, and she became priority target for petty revenge. Every time entitled kid came out to play, all the neighborhood kids were told to come inside, as the neighborhood was very vocal about how they didn't trust their kids around entitled kid or entitled mom. She tried to paint me as the villain, and ended up completely obliterating her own standing in our town instead. That's all for now, but don't be blue. I'll be back soon with more stories for you. Remember to listen to Mr. Reddit every night, so your dreams will be wonderful like you are and bright.